Fence. It's really an honor to be published again in this magazine. I'm working towards a manuscript for my first short story collection. I'm hoping to have that together soon, so this is hopefully going to be one of the stories in that collection. So this is called A Vehicle for Marital Bliss. Margaret barely had them to the end of the driveway, and the hairs on Henry's arms were already up, reaching for someplace else. There are two types of people, Henry liked to say: those who drive with the windows down, wind in their hair, and the spoil sports who seal themselves in and jack the AC. This was his insight into humanity, his clever articulation of how different he and Margaret were. He shared it at their daughter's wedding reception, at the wine and cheeses that Margaret put on at work, at the Ministry of Transportation with other people in line who couldn't wrap their heads around ordering license plate stickers online. He worked this bit of wisdom into his slurred retirement speech last year. He knew it got old with Margaret, though, painting her as the uptight, wet blanket. He wasn't exactly a wild man himself, so he took it out of service. He let it go. Margaret, eyes and eyebrows, somewhere behind those massive Dior sunglasses, turned onto Cherry Street and put her foot down. The station wagon sputtered, but soon kicked into gear, accelerated, and had Margaret happily over the speed limit. Henry was excited about the errand ahead of them today, that they had an excuse to spend the morning together, like their weekend runs to the bakery for the raspberry-filled donuts they both liked. It was going to be a nice break from his computer room. The Springsteen, the Solitaire, the Yahoo Finance stock ticker. For Margaret, a self-described work junkie, it was a temporary reprieve from her 50-hour week at City Hall. Henry looked out the window, brainstorming talking points, the health of their RSPs, the mileage they'd gotten out of this old Subaru, the new neighbors who were letting their yard go to shit. "You think they'll cut the grass sometime this century?" Henry said. What a disaster. The neighbors, as a topic, was a good common ground lead-in the handful of times Margaret and Henry spoke each day. It gave them something to get on the same page about, a reason to team up. Margaret didn't like talking about work. Maybe, Henry thought, because she didn't actually like her job as much as she let on. As manager of municipal engagement with the city, she facilitated opportunities for community involvement. She was a conduit. The only initiatives she seemed to actually enjoy talking about were the wine and cheeses she put on at gallery openings and community theater performances, because everything was better with wine and cheese. Margaret merged onto Concord Parkway, using her side mirror to check her blind spot, instead of looking over her shoulder. Henry never understood Concord's appeal. Okay, you can do 80, he thought, but there are lights every other block. You have to get lucky with them to come out ahead. Not that it was about coming out ahead, not for Henry. For Henry, it was about what all those car commercials preached, with their winding mountainside roadways and happy dogs hanging out passenger windows, slobbering in the wind. It was about the journey. Henry stuck to Cherry Street, a quiet two-lane back road. You went 50, but you went steady, no stoplights. Cherry Street, somehow forgotten amongst the city's explosive suburban sprawl, was a glimpse of the old days, when roads had character, when milkweed, chicory, and tall glass thrived beyond gravel shoulders, when Margaret and Henry were in college, exciting each other with talk of marriage and family and home furnishings. "Sunday drive," Henry said. "We should have come tomorrow." Nothing from Margaret. "Sunday," he said. "Sunday drive? Today's Saturday?" Margaret pulled into the lot. "Jesus, lighten up. Smile once in a while." That illustrious blue and white BMW logo was everywhere, revolving on wind-spun signs, flapping on flags lining the building, mounted to the hood of every vehicle in the lot. The rusty blue Subaru with vanity plate Blueberoo waded into a sea of luxury vehicles. Margaret ignored an open spot by the front entrance, drove around back, and parked in what looked like the employee lot. All Beamers, but without those flashy windshield stickers. Henry undid his seatbelt and escaped Margaret's freezing artificial air. Wonderful June heat reduced the bumps on his arms and legs. They followed a walkway around the building, Henry in his cargo shorts and sandals, Margaret in a collared shirt and tight skirt. Her heels clopped the concrete, exuding purpose, like the executive she was. "Are you happy?" he asked. She took Henry's hand. "Of course I am." Henry loved these little tasks of theirs. Margaret too. Their wants overlapped, they collaborated, like when they used to do jigsaw puzzles together in college. Also, it made Henry feel like he was back in circulation, out and about, making decisions. Sometimes he missed driving that city bus, interacting with people, but mostly it was nice to be retired, not having to interact with people. Inside, Margaret found the car right away, the model one of the other city managers had bought last month, showcased on a circular, foot-high stage, gleaming under halogen light, a sporty little number. Henry checked it out from different spots. This was exciting. The gloss of the black paint, the leathery new car smell. Henry only faintly remembered feeling this way about the old Blueberry, when it was the sexy new vehicle, the one with room for child seats and small furniture, because the bricks delivery fees were ridiculous. This was a fresh start. It was like getting a do-over. Margaret and Henry had promised each other they were going to take better care of this one. They were going to stay on top of maintenance. They were going to shell out for rust-proofing, because once you got complacent, that stuff spread like cancer. "Pretty slick," Henry said. A salesman materialized. "Isn't it?" he said with something in his mouth. He finished chewing and put his hand on the hood. "Precision engineered, this baby." "Aerodynamic," Henry said, like he knew what he was talking about. "Yes, minimal drag," the salesman said. "This baby doesn't compromise." Margaret touched Henry's arm like, "I'll take it from here." "I know all about it," Margaret said, sunglasses still on, indoors, like a pop star trying to come off as mysterious. Henry gave up calling Margaret on it because she was never going to change. 30 years of marriage and you learn how to make it work. He shared this nugget at one of his Father of the Bride speeches. The key to a happy marriage is letting things slide. The more things you let go, the longer you last. "Me and Margaret," he said, "we let everything go." Margaret downed her champagne and leaned over the mic and added, "Our profound contribution to the body of knowledge on relationships." "A friend of mine got one last month," Margaret said. "The sedan, no, not the coupe. I want the coupe." The salesman straightened and adjusted his suit in a very "yes, ma'am" kind of way. "We're here so I can get a feel for it," Henry said, advocating for himself. "Absolutely, let me get some vitals from you and we'll head out." "Brilliant," Margaret said. The guy, Edward, according to the nameplate on his desk, took Henry's driver's license and sat down at a computer. "So is this a for him or for her?" "For both," Margaret said, which was maybe a stretch since she was going to be the one using it for work every day. "For both," Edward smirked, "as in one for each? No problem." Margaret laughed. Henry watched her, hamming it up for this guy, for a joke that wasn't even clever. "No, it's a gift we're giving each other," she said. "The mortgage is done." "Ah, your days of settling are through," Edward said, finishing up on his computer and snatching some keys out of a drawer. "Shall we?" I'll leave it there.